Hey guys, so we've already had two stock market sessions this week, and as you can see on the weekly BX trender, it is not looking great so far for the S&P 500 as a whole. The Nasdaq is looking a bit better, and some of the tech stocks, even though they're BX trenders like Nvidia, are still in the dark red, are bouncing pretty nicely off the weekly market bias. Microsoft looks like it's on track to close a higher low on the weekly BX, and Tesla is still closing higher low after higher low, and honestly looks really primed for a breakout. Google obviously is still pretty much straight up. At least it's consolidating up here rather than having a really steep correction. Apple, based on my massive Wyckoff schematic that I drew the other day, is still looking pretty good, although it does look like it wants to take a bit of a breather where it is now, especially on that last weekly candle. It is not looking great, but as long as it holds, I'd guess around $264, and especially above the previous all-time high of $260, I think Apple was still on track to hit the $300 targets that Peter DiCarlo has talked about in some of his X posts and on Traders Helping Traders on YouTube. So one quick note is when you break into a all-time high and then quickly snap back beneath the previous all-time high, such as what happened over here on Bitcoin, where we at the end of September, start of October, where we broke through the 124k top, but snapped right back down after it, it usually is not a great sign for the market. So keep an eye on that $260 level for Apple. Meta is a very interesting chart in my opinion, because we've got three higher lows on the weekly, two of them confirmed. And unless something crazy happens this week where we sell off, below 640, I doubt we're going to close this week lower low. But one thing to note is because we've seen some considerable price action underneath the market bias, similar to what we saw in April of this year, I don't think we're going to get a V-shaped recovery. I do think Meta might need a couple more weeks before we can flip that market bias into support. And obviously what I'd be looking for is closes and higher lows above $700 or just a straight move up. Either way, whatever happens. Amazon on the weekly time frame is honestly not looking great. We closed last week dark red, and it looks like we're going to close this week dark red as well. The saving grace is we're still holding on top of the market bias, so technically structure is still bullish. I just really don't like what we saw here, where we pushed into an all-time high, then came right back down. It typically can be a sign of an upthrust after distribution, as what we saw in Bitcoin. So if we break this low of around $215 and this low of $210, and we start closing below the 50-week TMA and the market bias, then I am definitely not going to be very happy with Amazon. Netflix, I'm not going to cover this in detail because Peter DiCarlo made a really great video earlier today. You can check it out on his X or YouTube, which is Traders Helping Traders. And pretty much a move like this, where you're just getting closes and lower highs underneath the market bias after a very long run up, typically signals a major trend shift. So if you remember in March and April of 2022, after we had the November-December top for cryptos and the whole stock market, a lot of stocks and cryptos managed to form a significant lower high, at least retesting the market bias from below, sort of like what Bitcoin did. You had a collapse, but a pretty strong relief rally, which I talked about the other day. That's almost a 50% relief rally. But Netflix, as you can see here, on an extreme move, we managed around 35%, but in reality, unless you caught wick to wick, there was pretty much no relief rally. It was just a redistribution downwards grind. So, in my opinion, that is something that could happen again on Netflix, because we just haven't seen such bearish price action this entire cycle. Like, what happened back here in October of 2023? We had a couple of closes and lower highs underneath the weekly market bias, but we had a massive bullish engulfing candle, and we just haven't managed to get that because we've made our lower high, then we made another lower high, and price still isn't showing any signs of a bottom. And as soon as that April low around $81 gets taken out, I will definitely be looking for some major shorts on Netflix. MicroStrategy is something that Michael Pizzino covered really well in his video today, where he covered MicroStrategy and Coinbase. So I won't talk about it too much, but as you can see on our 8 weeks down signal, where even if you bought after 7 weeks down, you would still be in a sizable 10% profit. And as you can see, we got our higher low close on the weekly BX trender, and if we get another higher low close, it will be looking pretty good for a relief rally towards the targets of 200, 240, and I think 300 that Michael talked about. And Peter DiCarlo also made a video about it, so it seems that MicroStrategy is the talk of the town, as it's just so oversold, and it actually does look like we are getting some decent buying volume. You know, you could see this as a selling climax or a reversal, depending on how you want to read it. But yeah, we've got this 50% level at 260. We've got a couple of lows at 235-ish. We've got the market bias at around 280, and obviously your 300 psychological number and the breakdown zone, as Michael called it in his video today. So make sure you go check out Michael and Peter DiCarlo, their videos on MicroStrategy, because I do think MicroStrategy offers a potential very good long trade, especially if we get what Jason has been talking about on his YouTube channel, Jason Pizzino, a potential 3-month or so relief rally for stocks and crypto, mostly crypto, similar to what we saw, January to April of 2022. If we can get a nice relief rally, MicroStrategy could, retest $300, which from here would be a 50% move. So it is definitely something to keep on the radar, and I will be covering it in depth over the coming days and weeks. Coinbase right here is something I've been attempting to create a Wyckoff schematic on, and as of now, I am still pretty inconclusive. I really don't like the fact that we broke the previous all-time high, closed back underneath it, made another failed attempt, and now we're back beneath this initial buying climax in April of 2024. We had all that crazy volume and hype when Bitcoin made its 74k top. I just really don't like that we're underneath it, as well as the fact that we're underneath the 50-week TMA and the market bias, and it looks like we've been failing to close above it for multiple weeks on end. The saving grace is the weekly BX trender. Looks like it wants to close a higher low. Make sure you check out Michael's analysis on this. In my opinion, Coinbase isn't something that I want to touch, but if you've done your analysis or you're following someone that's done some good analysis on it, then there are potential trade opportunities there. AMD is something that Peter DiCarlo of In Traders Helping Traders and has been covering a lot, and I've been following it quite a bit as well. The one thing I do like about AMD is we broke into a new all-time high on this absolutely insane earnings pump, and so far we have been consolidating above it. Now I usually go off the wick, but just in this case I use the candle body, because that's what Peter DiCarlo at Traders Helping Traders has been doing. And I just don't think that single wick into an all-time high is enough to use it. Like, sometimes I use it for drawing trend lines, but in this case, I'm going to go off the body. And even if I did go off the wick, we're technically not that weak in terms of price action, because we are still pretty close to where that wick was. It's not like we've collapsed, a full we're going to use MicroStrategy. Yeah. It's not like we've collapsed a full, 50% or 60% or 70% away from it. So technically Coinbase and isn't actually looking that bad now that I come to look at it from this perspective. But regardless, AMD does look great. I don't like the way the weekly BX trender looks, but the fact that the price is going up whilst we've been getting increased selling pressure it's an interesting divergence. You can also look at it as a potential low volume rally if you're a Michael Pizzino follower and you know how much low volume rallies like to get smacked back down. CleanSpark has been one that Peter DiCarlo has been covering heaps with us over in Traders Helping Traders. We've been trading these absolutely insane volatile moves. There's not really much that I want to talk about on this except that, trend lines and 50% levels are your friend, I guess. And even if you're drawing these trend lines from, tops from way back, you can clearly see how well the market has respected them, despite the trend lines being years and years old. So when you put in the work, when the market's quiet, like when the market's dead all through here, no one's FOMOing in or panic selling. Everyone who's panic sold has already sold and has looked the other way, as Michael likes to say. Retail always leaves at the wrong time. Don't walk away. Just come back to the chart, draw the trend lines that you need to draw. So when the market heats up, you've got all the analysis in front of you that can enable you to make the right decisions. Now, Palantir, we've seen our 3 days down signal back here. And we did have an invalidated 3 days down signal here where we got saved by an outside bar. So price took out the high of the previous bar before moving lower. And we've seen this beautiful fourth time breakout that I mentioned over to the TIA Premium Community Discord. And I talked about a bit on YouTube here as well. And you can clearly see we've pumped right up to the 50-day TMA, which if you manage to catch the wick, would have been a pretty nice 20% move, or even if you got in on the breakout or the breakout retest, it's still a pretty juicy 10% profit. Now, right now, I do like the way Palantir looks. We are getting higher lows on the weekly BX trender, and this week hopefully closes with a higher low as well. And HIMS, JD, and Rocket Lab, pretty much the same. We closed last week with a higher low on the weekly BX trender, and that's something Peter DiCarlo has talked heaps on X and over on the Traders Helping Traders community. Rocket Lab has been one of my most spectacular trades where we got this awesome bounce off the 50% level coming from the August 2024 crash, because we cut through the 50% level from the April crash. So when one 50% level breaks, you look to the next one. So I think Jason and Michael always like to say this: when, one level of support or resistance is broken, you look to the next one. You don't look to something that's miles and miles and miles away, like some analysts like to do. We'll take a quick look at crypto. You can see Bitcoin is still looking like it wants to close a higher low this week on the weekly BX trender, which I talked about in my last video would be very great if it happens. The daily chart has put in a crazy volatile day yesterday with $500 million of liquidations, where we tagged everyone's stops if they were longing by just pushing past the previous day's low, which on a 4-hour chart would have looked a lot nicer. If I can figure out where days are. We'll come back to that later, but you can see we took out the stop losses for longs, we trapped some shorts in, we had a huge pump, then a big reversal. I do like that we're holding above the high of the previous day for now, so my Elliott wave analysis and my bullish thesis is still on. And again, I really love the fact that the daily 1 bar, 2 bar, and 3 bar charts are all up, and the daily BX trender is showing buying pressure. And on the 4-hour chart, you can see we now have 3 tops of roughly the same level. I do believe this is going to be a little bit of a diagonal trend line, So potentially we could see a fourth time diagonal breakout on the FOMC meeting in around probably 13 or 14-ish hours time from when this video gets uploaded, where, you know, if we just chop sideways into FOMC, maybe we get a scare wick down to anywhere up to the 50% is fine, and a crazy move up, fourth time breakout, where if that does happen, I will look to the yellow line at around $97,600. I do believe that yellow line is something I stole off Jason and Michael. It's, I think, a connection of all the previous all-time highs or something, like a really significant historic resistance. So this fourth time breakout is definitely something on my radar, and so far this entire schematic looks like a nice Wyckoff accumulation. We've got our higher lows on the 4-hour 2-bar. We're getting slightly higher highs, and for now we are holding above the previous 2-bar swing top. Now obviously our 4-hour 1-bar trend is down, but the 2-bar and 3-bar is up, which I'm very liking, and I'm really hoping we can turn this weekly trend up soon. Looking at the 1-hour chart, you can see our 8 bars down led to a reversal after last night's huge pump. And one other thing I'm really liking is, if I can draw that right, that's 94,640, close enough, is we've crashed under the 50% level, but we've quickly gotten back above it. So again, this does look more like accumulation than distribution, because if it was distribution, we'd be getting closes and lower highs under the 50% level. So hopefully this means, along with our hidden bullish divergence and the fact that the BX trender is selling off but price is stabilizing, hopefully that means we see a very nice pump in the next day or so, which Michael also talked about in his video, where he goes over some crypto market structure, where a pump in the next day or two would be really, really excellent. That's pretty much all I have in this video. Not much has changed in the USDT dominance from my last video, and our altcoins all look like they're trying to close their weekly BX trenders with a higher low, or attempting to close above the daily 50 TMA. So that's definitely really good. We'll just have to see what happens with FOMC, as that looks like what everyone is watching. Thank you all for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye.